Human Refuge Number 172, Dingcheng 28th District, the junction of inferior shanty towns and high-class living quarters. Under the dazzling street lamp, facing Gao Sai's piercing heart, Ma Mei's heavily make-up face was full of disgust. Gao Sai, you are right, I just play with you because of you're handsome, a little greedy. But have you heard that sentence? Behind every so-called handsome guy, there is a XXXX who wants to vomit woman. I am the woman who is about to vomit. Have you ever felt affection for you? Ha 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 ha, I'm so ridiculous, to be able to taste the beauty of a fifth-class beauty like me, it's already your turn to cultivate the blessing of how many lifetimes you have. You are the one inferior Dalit, worthy to talk to me about feelings. Su Bei is just playing with me? Even if he is just playing with me, I will still be very happy. He will play with me for a week to give me the benefits, which you can't make in your life. I abandoned you for Su Bei? Ha ha ha, that's right. Rubbish, you remember, whether it is status, strength or wealth, whether it is now or in the future, you will never be able to compare with him. Compared with him, you look like a puddle of at his feet. Ma's eyebrows are like throwing away the mud stuck to her hands, throwing away the gift that Gao Sai gave to her, who is still unwilling to give up, and then twisted away. Gao Sai, predecessor, watched Ma Mei's plump and tall body twisted and walked away, his face twisted. Took out the sharp dagger that he had prepared long ago from his pocket, swiped the knife towards his own face, one knife after another, mixed with screams, until the whole face was bloody. When the desperate high game bleeds and died, Ma Mei, who didn't even turn his head, has been sitting a few blocks away, in Su Bei's Security Bureau patrol car. JSI looks back on the memory of his predecessor, his face is gloomy, crossing over to such a person, he was in a bad mood. JSI, inferior citizens of Dingcheng Refuge, Xin Yuanju Cultivation Base is the most common first life gate, living in number 19,486 shed. In the giant refuge number 172, the people are divided into 7 grades strictly according to specific standards. The predecessor of the inferior status is the most despised, oppressed, and extremely poor people. As for the Xin Yuanju that almost everyone practices in the refuge, their strength is judged based on the number of life gates opened, and the first life gate is the most basic one. His predecessor was not only low-ranking and ordinary cultivation. His parents died of illness, leaving him with a debt of up to 300,000 yuan from the inferior people's administration. He was also taken 28 days ago because he was unable to pay the expenses. District 9th Middle School was ordered to suspend school. The last straw that crushed his predecessor was his girlfriend Ma Mei. Ma Mei broke up with his predecessor, which directly led to the despair, collapse, and death of the predecessor. Gao Sai touched his face and neck, the dozens of wounds that had been rolled up and were not completely scabbed, caused his fingers to shrink back like an electric shock, and he couldn't help cursing. Screamed. Everything that the predecessor possesses is desperate, except for the skin that looks good, but now it is ruined by the predecessor because of the stimulation of the horse eyebrows. The choice of S predecessor is certainly wrong, but Ma Mei is really ruthless, even if she can stop it a bit, this face will not be ruined like this. After putting aside these memories, Gao Sai frowned, his thoughts immersed in the interface in his mind. When just crossed over, he already found that he had an extra system interface in his mind, honor value system level 1 glory value, 0 Qi and blood, 2 Qi and blood are human beings in this world, the energy of the human body that sustains life activities and cultivates Xin Yuanju. After he crossed over, there was no change in the interface in his mind, except that his vitality value fell from 3 to 2 because of his life-sustaining activities. According to the system's prompts, if you get the envy, admiration, appreciation, jealousy, and other emotions of others, you can increase your glory value. The glory value can be converted into a lot of vitality one by one, which can be used to cultivate this star that everyone can practice in this different world. Yuanju, and the glory value accumulated to a certain amount, you can also upgrade the system to get some more powerful functions. If you have enough glory points, you have an almost infinite chi and blood bank, and you can make your cultivation speed and endurance far surpass others. A system that looks very good. But the premise is that you can get emotional values such as envy and admiration. Falling into his current identity, how do you gain the envy and admiration of others? Gao Sai's thoughts kept flashing, thinking about possible ways, but soon, his hunger pangs and extreme weakness interrupted his thinking. Sai stopped thinking, must get some food as soon as possible, otherwise, I'm afraid that if I haven't thought of a way, I will run out of blood and starve to death. He fumbled his whole body carefully, but rummaged through his dirty canvas pockets, and still didn't find even a penny. Is really not ordinary poor. Even the money to buy food is gone. Sighed, Gao Sai looked down, was thrown into the plastic box on the ground by the horse eyebrows. It was a bunch of artificial plastic flowers flashing with gaudy light. If you buy in this world, it only costs 20 yuan. But this 20 yuan is all the money that the predecessor had saved in order to give the horse eyebrows a gift, even without eating for a day. This flower. Gao Sai's eyes flashed, quickly made up his mind. He picked up the plastic flowers on the ground and walked towards a messy canteen in the distance. Under the blood-stained and wounded Sai, with a kind look on his eyes, the commissary owner really did not resist, and promised Sai to return the bunch of plastic flowers in exchange for a large piece of expired crusty bread. Then the commissary owner watched him suspiciously. Gao Sai grabbed the crusty bread and walked along the street towards the entrance of the shanty town in his memory. After walking a certain distance, Gao Sai suddenly stopped, and there was a slight surprise on his face. Envy value plus 500. Where does the envy value come from? How can someone envy me with my completely ruined look? Gao Sai looked around, and only saw it through the street light. Just beside a trash can on the side of the street not far away, a little girl with a black mud face and a tattered vest was holding something stinking in her hand. The rotten carton was staring at the crusty bread in his hand with some eagerness. Seeing herself looking over, a trace of alert appeared in the little girl's eyes. After walking around the trash can, she still stuck her head halfway out and stared at the crusty bread in her hand. There was a rush of complex emotions in Gao Sai's heart. The expired hard bread, the little girl stared at it so directly, and she was envious. This little girl who looked less than 5 years old was probably hungry for a long time. Got it. Hey! Gao Sai exhaled heavily. Unfortunately, if it were given to you, I am afraid I would not be able to survive the cold night of the shack. He squeezed the crusty bread, forced himself not to look at the little girl, and walked forward with his head down. Envy value plus 600. There was another message in his mind. Sai had taken a few steps, but suddenly stopped. Because according to the system's prompt in my mind, I now have 1100 glory points and I can already consume glory points 1-to-1 to increase vitality and blood. This means I can have enough even if I don't have food. His chi and blood maintain his life activities, and with so many chi and blood values, he can cultivate at a high speed. This piece of hard bread can no longer determine his own life and death, but it may let that little girl survive this cold night. Thinking of this, Gao Sai frowned. He turned and looked at the trash can. The black-faced little girl saw Gao Sai twisting around, and her whole body immediately shrank, and she completely retracted behind the trash can. The high game was taken aback, and he was about to throw the crusty bread in his hand, but suddenly thought of something, and a smile appeared on his face. Do you want to eat my hard bread? Envy value plus 700. Gao Sai tore open the bag of hard bread, and there was a tear sound. Envy value plus 800. If you don't talk, then you don't want to eat, I just eat. Envy value plus 850. Crack, the sound of crusty bread being broken. Envy value plus 900. Although the taste is harder, it's so sweet. Envy value plus 950. It feels good to eat half a bread in one bite. Envy value plus 999. The little girl finally couldn't stand it anymore, secretly showing a small dirty face behind the trash can. After seeing the crusty bread that Gao Sai had broken in half but had not eaten, she couldn't help but look at Gao Sai with some caution and doubt. Gao Sai looked at the little girl's appearance, a little bit sad. The glory value from this poor little girl burst to 6,299. If it continues to explode, I feel like I am inhumane. He looked at the vigilance in the little girl's eyes, rewrapped the bread in a packaging bag, placed it on the ground, got up and pointed to the inferior civilian number plate on his chest. My name is JSI, I'm in Shantytown number 19486. I'm afraid of what bad guy I am. I still have bread in my house, this piece is for you. The little girl's eyes were full of longing, but she never dared to reach out for it, and her small and thin body shrank back. Gao Sai shook his head and smiled, took a few steps back, turned and continued towards the entrance of the shanty town. My name is... came a very low voice. Gao Sai turned to look. The little girl was watching him carefully, her voice louder. My name is Xiaoyu, I belong to shanty number 15676 in the shanty town. I will take the bread back to eat with my mother. Thank you, Gao Sai. JSI finished listening to the little girl. She tried her best to make a gentle smile on her face full of fierce wounds. Then turned and walked towards the shanty town in the dark. After 2 turns, walking in the high game on the inside of the road, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com focused on the system interface in his mind. After the glory value reached more than 6,000, the system interface has changed, and a new function has been added. What is this function? The dazzling light suddenly lit up at this moment. Squeaking, the piercing brake sound suddenly sounded, accompanied by the screams of men and women. The high game only felt a sharp pain, and then the sky was spinning. This is a security bureau patrol car. Even though it has started to brake sharply, it still crashed into Gao Sai at a terrifying speed of 180 miles. It knocked JSI out for more than 20 meters. When hovering in the air, JSI's body was already twisted and deformed, and then fell on the ground and wiped out more than 10 meters. The muscles and skin of JSI were instantly broken and bloody. It was dripping with bone stubble sticking out everywhere. This patrol car is a special vehicle. The body weighs several tons. The front of the car is covered with crisscrossed steel bumpers. For that matter, the thick steel bars of many children's arms have been twisted and deformed. The patrol car took a spark across the street and smashed onto the broken body of the JSI before it stopped. Fuck, what a bad luck! The tall, grim-faced senior inspector, Su Bei, the 4th Life Gate Master, stepped down from the cab cursingly, bent over and exerted force to use the patrol car weighing more than 3 tons. Moved his hands a little, and then looked at Gao Sai, who was already on the ground. Scared me to death. You didn't hurt me. Mame was breathing fast, clutching his high chest, and got out of the car from the other side with a look of surprise. She looked at Gao Sai on the ground, her eyes widened in an instant. Why is it him? Hasn't this silly girl committed suicide? Su Bei turned his head and looked around the intersection. Very good, there is no camera installed at the intersection in this shanty town. He narrowed his eyes. The untouchables who don't have long eyes, they were killed in a sudden death. After finishing speaking, he glanced at Mame with some doubts. Why, do you know him? Mame forced himself to calm down, patted his chest. His face was full of disgust. It seems to be a student of the same grade in high school, a bit familiar. It's just an inferior pariah, how would I know it? Su Bei is slightly suspicious. This girl student is very coquettish, she can be with whomever, but I just look at her smoothly, just play around, it doesn't matter. He walked to Gao Sai, who was twisted on the ground, took a closer look, and kicked again. Seeing that there was no response, he pressed his fingers on Gao Sai's neck for a few seconds. That way, I won't live long. Pull to the suburbs and help me dig a hole and bury it. Anyway, 1 or 2 missing in the shanty town every day. After speaking, he opened the trunk, made some stuff to cushion it so that the car was not dirty, then walked to JSI, directly picked up his bent body, and threw it into the trunk. The horse eyebrow held his iron rod on the bottom of the pit, wiped the sweat from his forehead, and glanced around. Brother Su, it's almost done for such a big pit. Su Bei came over from the car with a cigarette in his mouth. He glanced at the nearly 2-meter deep pit, and then at the wet eyebrows of his horse. There was a playful smile at the corner of his mouth. Well, that's it. Var. I really don't know this person. I'm afraid this girl might have hatred with this guy I hit. She digs so deep. Casually threw the JSI body he had brought over to the bottom of the pit. You can bury it. Ma Brao watched Gao Sai be thrown on the bottom of his feet. It seemed that his head hit the bottom of the pit and he bounced twice, and the corners of his mouth also threw blood again. She was afraid of soiling her clothes, so she hurried back a few steps. He's already dead. Su Bei sneered, if you don't die, you will die. Stop the ink stains, do it quickly, let's go for a while after we're done, and go unlucky. The horse eyebrow, who was about to open the second door of life, jumped out of the pit, and directly raised the iron shovel, and the earth was covered up. The entire pit was quickly filled up. Gao Sai was in a coma and was tortured with severe pain and depression, so he became sober. Severe pain came from every part of his body, and he couldn't help but open his mouth and scream out. Just after opening it, he felt a lot of cold and earthy things blocking his mouth. Gao Sai's voice was directly blocked by the mud. Pain, boredom, darkness, unable to move the body. The scene before the coma appeared in his mind. I was hit by a car? Did you die? This is hell? Wrong. This cold and heavy feeling, and this smell, should be mud. I am buried. As a third-year high school student in 9th middle school, although Xing Yuanju's cultivation is very poor, he only opened the first life gate. The qi and blood can still sustain life in a short period of time when oxygen is cut off, it's just that the consumption of energy and blood is too fast. In an instant, Gao Sai felt that his energy and blood was on the verge of being exhausted. He didn't dare to hesitate, and reluctantly, under the multiple assaults of severe pain, depression, and heavy pressure, he concentrated his mind, consumed 10 points of glory, and directly filled up the blood value that had already bottomed out. Plenty of qi and blood rushed all over the body. Although the feeling of depression was relieved, the heart-piercing pain was a little heavier, and JSI almost fainted again due to the pain. He was wrapped in the mud, suppressing the extreme panic in his heart, focusing on the focus, examining the interface that had changed before he was hit by a car. The number of first-level glory points in the glory value system has reached the standard. Do you want to upgrade? Weather glory value, 6,289 qi and blood, 10 without any hesitation. Gao Sai directly clicked on the yes option. Suddenly the system interface changes. Honor system level 2 glory value, 6,289 qi and blood, 10 yuan gen level, inferior yuan gen. Whether it consumes glory to upgrade to infinite growth type yuan gen, first level super variant, yes/no, upgrade to get 1 more yuan root level. Can also consume glory points to upgrade? JSI knows through memory that the cultivators of this world's yuan gen qualifications are divided according to the speed of cultivation. The yuan gen level of his own body is the lowest inferior yuan gen, and there are medium, high, and best on the top. Yuan root. The problem is that I am seriously injured and dying. I don't know how deep I am buried in the soil. Even if I can upgrade yuan gen to this super variant, that sounds very good. I can increase my cultivation speed. Use it. Do not care. Changes should always be good. In an instant, the system interface changed again. Honor system level 2 glory value, 5,289 qi and blood, 100 yuan root level, level 1 super variant. Does it consume glory points to upgrade? Yes/no. At the same time as the system interface changed, Gao Sai felt a stream of heat rushing out of his mind and spreading all over his body. He could actually feel the distorted and broken bones of his body, melted into liquid and squirmed, moving towards his body surface. The remaining bones in the body are growing rapidly. In just a few seconds, the bones, muscles, internal organs, and skin on his body have all recovered, and the bones that have turned into liquid completely cover his whole body. Reality. The change is still continuing. Gao Sai found that after his body recovered well, his bones continued to grow, and his muscles and internal organs were also growing. Especially the muscles. Although the original high-level body looks thin, it is actually relatively healthy and developed due to long-term work and exercise, as well as the compulsory seeing Yuan Ju in high school. And now, Gao Sai is surprised to feel that those already good muscles are growing and swelling like crazy. Even the eyes, mouth, tongue, pores and other muscles that can hardly be exercised are growing crazy. Ma Mei slapped the mound vigorously with an iron shovel, and then walked quickly toward the patrol car, as if he was afraid of some bad luck here. She just walked to the front of the patrol car, but she saw Su Bei in the cab with some surprise on her face, staring at the mound behind her. Ma's brows tightened. What's wrong with brother Su? Su Bei exhaled and shook his head. It's okay, I guess I'm wrong. Get in the car, and find a place to make your brother Su happy. There are not 50 or 40 people he has killed personally. How could he be guilty because of this weirdness? It was because of the surrounding darkness and the excitement of hitting someone tonight, plus looking at the horse's body with soaking eyebrows, I was already a little excited. Ma Mei heard Su Bei's words, but there was no excitement. He only felt a little bit cold, so he ran to one side and got in the car, and then looked at the mound by the glare of the patrol car. Just when she looked over, she called out "Ah!" She actually saw the mound suddenly agitated. Su Bei was frightened by Ma Mei's scream, and couldn't help but slapped it over. Scream. I was so scared that I was so scared to retract. Ma Mei said with an ugly face, will there be corpses? Su Bei's face was gloomy, and he snorted, Budgie, brainless ladies, are you stupid to watch movies? Where is the corpse? Even if there is, I still beat him to death. After speaking, he opened the car door and walked to the mound. With his right hand, he directly drew the gun from his waist, facing the mound, with a slight grin on his face. His Xing Yuan Ju has opened the fourth door of life, regardless of power, speed, explosive power, fullness of blood, etc., it is extremely strong, and has killed many inferior citizens and criminals who made troubles, so naturally he has some of his own. Bandit, will not be frightened by this weirdness in front of him. Holding a rifle loaded with armor-piercing bullets, after waiting for a while, there was no more movement in the mound. Su Bei relaxed a little and took a sip from the mound. Look at it. It's just that before he finished his words, he fell to the edge of the mound with a boom, and the rifle flew out. When the horse eyebrows in the car saw this, he screamed again with a loud "Ah!" The dust is flying around the mound. A majestic and tall body came out directly from the side of the mound. It was Gao Sai. Just now Su Bei fell down and grabbed his ankle by him and pulled it down beside the mound. The horse eyebrow at this time, looking at the sturdy monster in front of him, his face was already extremely pale. Under the glaring headlights of the patrol lights, it is terribly tall and majestic, at least 2 meters high, the tattered clothes and only half of the pants were left, and the half of the pants had also been torn apart and barely hung on its waist and legs. There is no trace of JSI's face at all. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com has a white weird fluid flowing all over his body. The muscles that keep agitating on its body are intertwined and knotted under the weird fluid wrap. They are so huge that they are completely beyond the state of human muscles. Even the muscles of his scalp, face, mouth, and neck are all drums into small packets, looking inexplicably mighty and weird. What kind of monster is this? Is really a corpse? The terrified Ma Mei couldn't help trembling, and was so scared that he became incontinent and made most of his short skirt wet with hot urine. JSI's huge pupils shrank suddenly. Through the dazzling light, he had already seen the mud-stained horse eyebrows on the clothes of the patrol car, and also the distortion of the steel bars at the front of the car, as well as the traces of blood remaining on it. He twisted his thick neck and made a click sound. Then looked at Su Bei, who had already turned over and jumped to the side of the patrol car flexibly. A hoarse and thick voice came from Gao Sai's muscle-filled voice, "You hit me." Su Bei looked at Gao Sai with uncertainty, his left hand was touching his other gun with a slow motion. "What are you talking about? I am a fourth-class citizen, Senior Inspector Su Bei of the Security Bureau. During the inspection, I saw a suspicious mound here, so I just came to check it. Who are you, what identity, and what car are you?" Hit. Regardless of what happened to this guy because of this strange and terrible change, he must never be allowed to live. At this moment, Su Bei, standing in the dark corner on the side of the car, finally held his left hand on the handle of the gun, and the muzzle was pointed at Gao Sai's head. This is a special-made gun with a large caliber that is stronger than the armor-piercing rifle. This thing can even blast away the scales of a monster more than 10 centimeters thick. Boom! A huge gunshot sounded. The crooked mound more than 1 meter high was bombarded by more than half of the explosive bomb. Dodges the bullet high game, and his fist hit Su Bei's chest. There are 2 large fists of normal people, which penetrated Su Bei's chest and pierced out from behind. Flesh and blood flew across, and half of the patrol car was painted bright red. Su Bei, who opened the 4th life gate, has very strong vitality. Such a punch penetrated him back and forth, and he did not die on the spot. The subgun in Su Bei's left hand fell to the ground with a snap, and then he clung to Gao Sai's thick arms with both hands. His eyes were full of horror, fear, and disbelief. How could its explosive power be so terrible? Its speed, even a strong man who has opened the 5th gate of life, is absolutely impossible to achieve. Am I going to die? I am a 4th-class citizen, I am a senior inspector of the Security Bureau, I have endless money and endless women, I can't die, I don't want to die. Su Bei wanted to shout these words, but his internal organs were all pattered with a punch, his throat was crowded with a lot of blood, and he couldn't say a word. Gao Sai has cold eyes, shook his terribly thick arm directly. Su Bei was thrown out more than 10 meters, spread out beside the mound with a snap, blood flowed like a column, and after struggling for a few times, he was killed on the spot. Go to hell! Ma Mei, who was sitting in the car, went crazy under extreme panic. Her heavily make-up face was distorted like a female ghost, and she held the submachine gun Su Bei had placed in the car to deter ordinary and inferior citizens, pointed her muzzle at the JSI head outside the car, and pressed it frantically. The bullet went directly to the high game like a torrential rain. Ding 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 ding! A large number of bullets penetrated the glass, hit Gao Sai's face-blocking arm, and made a crisp noise, bursting into a big spark. The weird white fluid flowing on the surface of JSI's thick arms unexpectedly blocked all the bullets coming at high speed. Sure enough, this white fluid is equivalent to exoskeleton defense. It can resist some ordinary bullets. Gao Sai experienced the itching feeling of the bullet hitting his arm, and couldn't help lowering his arm and scratching it with his other hand. A few times. The bullets were no longer blocked, and they kept making ding and ding sounds. Sparks sputtered on Gao Sai's face, neck, and chest until the horse eyebrows emptied the entire bullet holder. Ma Mei threw off the submachine gun and glanced at Su Bei, who was already dead in the distance. She screamed frantically, "No matter what you have become in the JSI, a dare to kill the 4th class, you are so dead." Her plump body rushed to the driver's seat, directly stepped on the accelerator. Accompanied by Ma Mei's eyes with twisted murderous intent, the motor roars, vapor gas is rapidly ejected from the exhaust hole, the wheels steamed white smoke, and wiped out a small hole in the ground. Then rushed towards JSI with a huge impact. JSI put one hand on the bumper of the front of the patrol car, he actually set a patrol car weighing several tons and carrying a terrible impact directly on the spot. You buried me alive. After saying this, JSI suddenly grabbed the other hand, and the entire patrol car was suddenly lifted above his head. Accompanied by the screams of fear and despair from the horse eyebrows, the patrol car slammed heavily on Su Bei's body beside the mound. One after another, a huge knocking sound came out very far in this dark suburb. It was a steel-reinforced patrol car weighing more than 3 tons. It was shaken easily in Gao Sai's hands. It was like hitting a blowfly with a fly swatter. The raised mound was directly shot into a big hole. Bah! Gao Sai's long and thick tongue stirred in his mouth and spit out the car parts splashed into his mouth. He looked at the horse eyebrow in the car. Although it is better than the flat Su Bei who was smashed to the bottom of the big pit, Ma Mei has already died too long. Her whole bones were shattered, and she was thrown into the corner of the carriage like a puddle of mud. The carriage was full of the smell of hot urine, even overshadowing the smell of blood. Gao Sai raised his brows. It is said that my previous life and the life of this JSI have never killed anyone. But after killing Su Bei and Ma Mei so fiercely, I didn't feel any discomfort, or even a little bit of excitement. Gao Sai shook his head. Perhaps because of the behavior of these two guys, I really couldn't stand it. Reached out and pulled the horse eyebrow out of the patrol car, and threw it into the big hole that was hit by the patrol car. He also jumped down, then he pulled out Su Bei and searched for the objects on the two of them. Use the patrol car to strengthen the gasoline in the fuel tank. After pouring the patrol car, Su Bei, horse eyebrow, and a few thick logs at the bottom of the big pit, the JSI uses the submachine gun taken out of the patrol car to press. I mounted another magazine, and several bullets exploded out, hitting the frame of the patrol car, igniting a spark, and the fire broke out. JSI squatted by the fire, looking at something on the ground. More than 2,000 cash, not too much. Does not seem to meet the 5th and 4th class citizenship status of the two, but this world also has mobile payments, which is actually normal. Next to the cash are some thick gold jewelry from horse eyebrows, exaggerated earrings, pure gold chains with thick pinky fingers, and a finger-wide ring, etc. Although these jewelry are stained with blood, they still flash under the firelight. With dazzling light, these pure gold jewelry are not only thick, but the patterns on them are also very exquisite, which is absolutely valuable. There is no denying that this woman Ma Mei is very vulgar and vicious, not a good thing. But in the high-class consumer area of the refuge, pure gold jewelry is high-end valuable goods. They are not guilty, they are all valuable good things. In addition, there is a piercing rifle with a strong single penetrating power. A special gun with great power and range strikes, a submachine gun, several bullets. JSI knows very well that these finely crafted pure gold jewelry are very valuable, but these bullets are also not cheap. Dingcheng Refuge is not a particularly peaceful place, nor is it a safe place. Chaos and fighting often occur. And there will be some flying monsters outside the high wall of the refuge, breaking through the defense of the high wall. In this case, a thermal weapon with immense power is naturally a good thing for people with lower cultivation bases to defend themselves. These jewelry and weapons together, it is estimated that they can sell a lot of money. Once these things are sold, this JSI's 300,000 yuan debt can definitely be repaid and there is a lot of surplus. This is a happy thing. In the 28th district of the refuge, an ordinary shanty town is a lower class family, even if there are 2 or 3 laborers, and if you want to save so much money, reading www.yuyuganshu.com will work without fear for 30 or 40 years. There is no possibility at all. And after upgrading Yuanzhen to the first level super variant, he actually got so many gains with just a few hands, which is worthy of the efforts of other inferior people for a lifetime. This is a complete outbreak. What? Gao Sai looked down at his hands full of terrifying power, his eyes flashed with fire under the flame. When looked up at the flames, Su Bei and Ma Mei had already turned to ashes, and even the patrol car had been burned to pieces. Gao Sai could feel that after fusing the memories of his predecessors, the resentment towards Ma Mei and Su Bei had also disappeared as the two disappeared. If the predecessor of had a soul, I must be able to rest in peace now. Thinking of this, Gao Sai's hands clenched fists, and a trace of determination and expectation rose in his eyes. In this refuge full of injustice and danger, strength is the foundation of everything. If it were the strength of the predecessor, in the situation just now, I am afraid that he would have died long ago. And I already have a strong foundation. Even Su Bei, a master of the fourth life gate, can kill him in one shot. And with the support of the glory system, the existing strength can definitely be improved rapidly. Use a large canvas to wrap everything on the ground. Gao Sai sat by the fire, thinking about how he would live next. These things want to be exchanged for a large number of banknotes circulating in the refuge. The premise is to be able to sell. The premise is that the current self can still be mixed into the human society of Ding Cheng. What is your current appearance? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at the tall and continuous wall on the horizon far away. As early as more than 200 years ago, this world has experienced terrible monster waves and various strange life forms. After decades of difficult resistance, humans in this world have built nearly 200 giant fortresses. Among the many refuges controlled by the Wu Financial Group, Ding Cheng is one of them. In the difficult battles with alien beasts and weird life forms, humans not only developed extremely sophisticated heat weapons, but also entered the era of super strength by taking the flesh and blood of alien beasts, and the combat effectiveness of individual humans was greatly improved, which barely resisted part of the threat. After that, human beings constantly broke through the limits of the human body through years of cultivating the mysterious Xing Yuan Ju and eating the flesh and blood of alien beasts. The life gate opened by Xing Yuan Ju was one of the standards of strength, like Su Bei who was killed by herself. The practitioner who opened the fourth gate of life, and the number of masters who are stronger than Su Bei in the Security Bureau does not know how many more. He killed an official 5th-class citizen Ma Mei, and 4th-class citizen Su Bei is still a senior inspector of the Security Bureau. Even if he can eliminate most of the traces, if the Security Bureau carefully investigates, it may be a hidden danger after all. And Gao Sai frowned and looked at his body. If he is not walking upright now, but with his hands on the ground, I am afraid that anyone who sees himself will think that he is a strange beast. Not human. Not to mention the huge muscle masses on the body, just a large number of muscle bumps on the face and the scalp, coupled with the white weird fluid flowing on the surface of the body, it does not look like a human species at all. This first-level super variant is indeed very strong. The cultivation of the first life gate can kill the fourth life gate master in seconds, but how does this look integrate into human society? Do you want to go to the wilderness to find some refugees gathering place, or just live by yourself? Although the strength and defense of this body are very strong, can he survive for a long time in the dangerous wilderness? And my own system needs envy, admiration, appreciation, jealousy. He focused his attention on the system, honor system level 2 glory value, 5289 chi and blood, 100 yuan root level 1 super variant. Does it consume glory points to upgrade? Yes/no, used 1000 glory points before and upgraded to the first level super variant, but because of the weird deformation of his body, he did not choose to continue to upgrade, worrying that if he changes again, he really doesn't look like a human at all. At this moment, the system transferred to Gao Sai's mind about what would happen after upgrading to the second level super variant. After digesting those messages, there was a hint of excitement in Gao Sai's eyes, and he decisively clicked on the upgrade in his mind. Then he squeezed the package in his hand and ran towards the high wall far away on the horizon in the night. Left traces all the way. After running for several kilometers, the high game turned again. Soon after, the shanty towns in the 28th district in the distance became more and more obvious, and a smile appeared on Gao Sai's face. Just past the system's message, he already knew in detail what will happen when the super variant is upgraded to the second level. This message made his heart happy. As long as one super variant upgrades to the second level, you can return to the shanty town and mix into the human world. After this period of rushing, the physical changes that occurred after the JSI was upgraded to the second level super variant have also been completed. Mentioned the trousers that were supported by the huge body of the first level super variant, and Gao Sai carefully examined his current body. The weak body state of the second level super variant is almost exactly the same as the original weak JSI body. The difference is that the muscles are smoother and fit a little bit, and the skin is more delicate and full of elasticity, just like the skin of a baby. The system interface has also changed. Honor System Level 2 Glory Value, 1289 Qi and Blood, 200 Yuan Root Level, second level super variant. It took 4000 glory points and some time, and the second level of Ultra variant was finally upgraded. Looking for a shelter from the wind, Gao Sai stood behind a few big trees, took off his pants, and threw them aside. In an instant, the real physical appearance of the second level super variant appeared. In the second level super variant, not only the huge muscles are exaggerated, but the white weird fluid on the body surface is also thicker several times. Even the height of the first level super variant is just over 2 meters, to almost 2 meters. Miju, Gao Sai's head is already near the canopy, every bone in the body has become extremely dense, even the teeth in the mouth have become sharp and protrude out of the mouth, like beasts. The arms are thicker. The big tree in front of JSI is as thick as a person's embrace. His arms are almost as thick as the big tree, and the muscle fibers on the arms are distinct, like steel bars. So, the thighs are almost half thicker than this big tree. The muscles on the thighs are bumpy, and the blood vessels on the surface about the thickness of the thumb are twisted and twisted, like a long snake attached to the thigh muscle. As the heart pumps blood again and again, it continues to expand and retract. Looks extremely impactful. Is this the real powerful body of the second level super variant? It really is getting more and more. Of course, it's not a problem to be less and less human. Because after upgrading to the second level super variant, he also has the ability to switch between the weak body and the first level and second level super variants at will. This means that as long as you maintain a weak body, others will not be able to find your own super variant weird image. After a while, the hills and mountains shook for a while, and the thick trees surrounded by one person were all pulled out by the excitement of the high game like pulling a weed, and they were thrown to the side of the hill at will. Simple and low huts are next to each other, and there is only a space that can accommodate 2 people side by side at most. The movable doors of the shed are mostly closed, and the owner of the house should have gone to work in their respective factories. There are only a few huts with movable doors ajar, some of them set with 1 or 2 thin old men in ragged clothes with hollow eyes, some dirty children are secretly looking at pedestrians passing by. There are yellow liquids near many shacks that are emitting a stinking smell, which should be traces of children or elderly people with mobility impairments because they cannot rush to the public toilets in time. Gao Sai frowned, enduring all kinds of weird smells that penetrated his nose, searching for his shack according to his memory. 19,479, 19,482, 19486. JSI glanced at the number plate of the shed in the distance. There is no problem, that's it. At the gate of number 19,486, there was a boy with a height of about 1.8 meters and a dark face. He was looking down at something. He seemed to hear the movement. He looked up and said, "JSI. You are finally back. I will come early in the morning. I'm going to go to class with you. Where did you go?" Gao Sai looked at the face of the boy in front of him. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com looked back at the memory in his mind. This boy is called Chongpeng, a classmate of senior high school, and he is a low-class citizen in a shanty town like JSI. He grew up together and had a good relationship. Yuanzhen is slightly better than JSI's, but he is extremely desperate in cultivation. Although he is only a middle-level Yuanzhen and his family is extremely poor, he has opened the second life gate for his life. Among the more than 1,000 senior high school students in 9th middle school, only a few middle-level Yuanjens have cultivated to this level of inferiority. Civil high school students in this world are all dedicated to practicing Xin Yuanju. Xin Yuanju is divided into levels according to the number of life gates opened. Each time one more life gate is opened, strength, speed, physical strength, etc. will be greatly increased. The specific increase is, generally speaking, every time a life gate is opened, the lifting weight will increase by more than 200 kilograms. As for the explosive power and speed, it depends not only on the cultivation of the star Yuanju, but also on the combination of martial arts. What about you, stupid? Also, why are you shirtless and your pants are pulled into strips? Changpeng asked in confusion. Gao Sai looked to one side. Oh, you may not believe it. I went out for a morning jog in the morning and I was torn by a woman. At this time, it can only be a haha. Changpeng looked suspicious. Really? Tell me, which hut is the woman? Let me go. Gao Sai walked over. I'm handsome, you have a bitter face, where is anyone interested in pulling your clothes? Don't block the door, I'll go in and change my clothes. Changpeng walked to the side, but his face flushed. I'm going to ask if it's true. I have a feeling, you kid definitely has a problem. Gao opened the door and said, no need to explain. Changpeng scratched his head vigorously. Is it special, do I need to explain? After staying depressed for a while, Changpeng stood on tiptoe and looked across the shanty town. A tall building exposed in the high-class residential area in the distance showed the time. It's almost 6 o'clock, change your clothes, and buy something along the way. Too much time wasted, it will be troublesome to be late for the assembly. JSI didn't have much thought to go to class. The contents of my baggage are not dealt with as soon as possible. It is a time bomb. I don't know when it will explode and attract the group of people from the security bureau. Just throw it away? Of course I can't bear it, it's equivalent to hundreds of thousands of yuan. The debt I owed to the lower citizens' management office is partly repaid every 6 months. If I don't pay it, I will be invited by the security bureau directly, and it will be the time to pay the money at the beginning of next month. What's more, if you want the glory value system to play a better role, you need envy, jealousy, and admiration. However, the conditions of this weak body are hard to say, and you can't easily expose the body. Only by changing these things into money and possessing wealth that people in shanty towns can't earn for a lifetime can they be regarded as possessing some capital that others can envy. Gao Sai made up his mind, and said in the narrow shed while changing his clothes, which class I'm taking, I'm an inferior Yuanzhen, and no matter how I learn it, I probably won't pass the exam. And I didn't collect all the tuition for this month, and I was kicked out if I went there. Changpeng took out a thick stack of banknotes of varying denominations from his pocket. I have prepared a few hundred yuan for you, which is enough for your 300 yuan tuition and living expenses this month. Gao Sai, who changed his clothes, was taken aback for a moment and looked at Changpeng, who was holding the banknotes at the door. Until Changpeng was a little hairy by him, Gao Sai said, your family is not much better than me. You and your sister are still required to go to school. I can't collect the money. Changpeng was a little anxious. Cultivation, study, and the college entrance examination are the only ways for the despised inferior people to change the future. Only by entering the higher training institute, the inferior people's status will have a chance to quickly rise to the 5th class. I don't allow you to just give up the most important opportunity in your life. Gao Sai waved his hand, saying that he did not want to talk about this topic anymore. Changpeng was annoyed. Also, you can't give up today's opportunity. Today, the school will organize all the students in the 3rd grade of high school to observe at the number 3 middle school in District 8. After the observation, you can freely move around in the afternoon. That's for sure. The 8th district, the most prosperous and densely populated area in the city. JSI was a little puzzled. what does prosperity have to do with our poor ghosts? Chongpeng rolled his eyes. The prosperous area in District 8 is definitely not what we are doing, but District 8 also has the most populous shanty town in Dingcheng. Usually our factory in the 28th district produces some cheap things, but the 8th district does not produce them. If these cheap goods are usually shipped to the 8th district, they will be stripped by the people at the intersections of the major districts. It has already increased several times. But the Security Bureau personnel will not check the school buses directly under the Ziowa department. Understand? This observation is an opportunity for the high-class students to have fun, but for us inferior citizens, it is an opportunity to make money. He pointed to the side of the door, where there was a backpack with a lot of things. These are some daily necessities my dad bought from their factory. If I take them to the shantytown market in District 8, I can at least flip one. Double. After he finished speaking, he handed the money to the JSI again. Each student is only allowed to bring a backpack. I can't bring it if there is more. In addition to the tuition fee of 300 yuan, you can buy some of our shantytown factory for the rest. JSI heard Chongpeng say this, his eyes lit up. I was still worried, how can I sell those things? Now is a good opportunity. According to my previous assumptions, if you sell it in the dark market in the 28th district, there are actually many hidden dangers. If you accidentally leave some traces, you may be found by the Security Bureau. If it can be sold in the dark market in the shanty town of District 8 tens of kilometers away, then it will definitely be fine. Thinking of this, he pushed Chongpeng's hand back. I know you have a good intention, but your family needs more money, and you can stuff more in your own backpack. An anxious look appeared on Chongpeng's face. How come you, like a stubborn donkey, just can't hear what I'm saying? JSI took out a neat pile of large banknotes from his pocket at this time. I have money here. Not a lot, more than 1,000 yuan. Chongpeng was a little anxious at first, but when he saw the colorful banknotes in Gao Sai's hand, he was taken aback. Gao Sai's hands are all large 100 yuan bills. Compared with the crumpled 1 yuan, 2 yuan and 5 yuan bills in his own hands, it is simply too tempting. Envy value plus 200. The high game was originally just to decline Chongpeng's kindness. Now that he saw that there was still envy worth of income, he couldn't help but move his face, and decisively took out 500 yuan bills from his pocket, put them in his left hand and patted them, making a popping sound. Chongpeng's eyes straightened. Envy value plus 500. JSI didn't hesitate anymore. He took out the last few hundred yuan in his pocket, folded the money together, and pulled it down with his hands, the banknotes rattling. In this scene, even he feels like a nouveau riche, so shameful. In order to envy the value, Gao Sai feels that he is a bit betraying his soul. It's a pity, but this time I didn't envy the income. Chongpeng's expression brought out a hint of suspicion. He looked at JSI carefully. So much. Where did your money come from? 2 days ago, you were so poor that you used to eat lunch. What did you do? Gao Sai looked to the side. You know my face looks pretty good. Chongpeng was a little surprised. What's wrong? Gao Sai put the banknotes in his hand into his pocket. You can make money if you have a good face. Chongpeng's eyes widened suddenly. No way. So, how can you? Envy value plus 555. For a while, Chongpeng's heart was full of various tastes. Mourn its misfortune and anger its indisputable anger. I feel a little embarrassed for Gao Sai, but a little envious, if I go on. No, I cannot do such a thing. I'm still a student. But it is really a lot of money, enough to cover the family for a long time. It can be equivalent to half a year of tuition. Looks long and beautiful, it can really be like this. Gao Sai's face seems to be whiter and tender again. Gao Sai was Chongpeng, who no longer cared about the complex thoughts turning at the door. He writhed in the dim and messy shack, and finally found a big backpack that was dark and dirty and didn't know where his predecessor picked it up. Went in. Had only a half-sized backpack on his back. Gao Sai took a look at Chong Peng, who was still at a loss and was still thinking about it. Go, I will also buy some daily necessities produced by a nearby factory. Chong Peng was photographed for a while before he came back to his senses, and then he put on his backpack and followed Gao Sai's side dully. Com has a complicated look, constantly looking at Gao Sai's face. Envy value plus 666. After walking a certain distance, Chong Peng suddenly thought something was wrong. No, there is such a rich woman in our shanty town who is willing to give you so much money? You kid is bluffing me. JSI looked at Chong Peng. Chong Peng, are you envious? Do you want me to tell you which woman it is? You can also. Chong Peng instantly looked righteous and awe-inspiring, and looked at Gao Sai with contempt. Bah, I, Chong Peng, has my own pursuit, my own personality, and my own bottom line. Where is a layman like you? Envy value plus 999. Half an hour later, Gao Sai, carrying a bulging backpack, and Chong Peng walked to the gate of the 9th Middle School. The 9th Middle School, located between the shanty town and the high-level residential area, has many differences from the previous middle school's architectural style, especially the concrete wall is extremely tall. Barbed wire is pulled near the wide entrance of the school. The security guards at the entrance are all of strong physique. Everyone is wearing special protective gear, holding a thick and shiny solid steel rod in his hand, and is equipped with a large caliber waist. His pistol is staring at the people passing by near the school gate. The slogan at the school gate is also quite different. Learn mathematics, physics, and chemistry well, practice Xing Yu and Ju. Defend the people of Dingcheng, repay the Wu group. Gao Sai looked at the big word Wu on the slogan, his eyes solemn. The giant refuge in Dingcheng covers an area of about 5,000 square kilometers and has a population of tens of millions. This is only part of the huge Wu family consortium. The entire Wu consortium administers 18 large and small refuges, managing countless people of all levels, including a large number of cultivators of different levels. There are countless various technology and people's livelihood companies owned by Wu, plus the security department, the military department, the resistance to aliens and the weird military service department, and the science and technology department. It is a behemoth that cannot be imagined in the previous high game. In the system of the Wu Financial Group, all people in the refuge will be comprehensively scored according to various conditions, and divided into 7 levels: upper-class citizens, first to 5th class citizens, and lower-class citizens. The number of inferior people living in dirty and chaotic shanty towns like Gao Sai is the largest, accounting for nearly 60% of the total population. They need to complete the extremely heavy work in their respective factories, live in crowded and dirty shanty towns, receive extremely poor wages, and endure the contempt of everyone above their status. The reason is, they are the offspring of criminals and criminals who have committed crimes, or people who have violated important regulations to get rid of high-level status. Or refugees who were allowed to enter Dingcheng for refuge after quarantine, including the descendants of 5th-class citizens, will automatically drop 1 level to become inferior citizens. Inferior citizens who have worked in the refuge for more than 50 years without any negligence or crime will be promoted to 5th-class citizens. In addition, the descendants of the 4th-class people will automatically be reduced to the 5th-class people without special circumstances, and so on, until the 1st-class people. Under this system, with the exception of some lucky ones, most of the people have basically become aging waste after being promoted to the upper class, and their descendants who are lowered to the lower class will begin the next cycle. There is a clear distinction between the people of all levels, and the inferior people must respect the people of the upper level. Moreover, many consumer places strictly restrict the enjoyment of people of all levels according to the degree of luxury and consumption level. Different grades of consumer goods and consumer places require enough people to enjoy them. Even every consumption place in the high-class residential area will be extremely insulting to put up slogans such as "inferior citizens are not allowed to enter." Some of does not include education. There are over 100 high schools close to militarized management in Dingcheng, as well as 20 colleges and universities, none of which restricts the identity of any student. Once a high school student can pass the college entrance examination to enter a higher education institution, prove his strength, potential, and perseverance, and if his grades are particularly outstanding and excellent, there will be very individual places, so that the status of the inferior national student can be directly promoted. For the fifth-class people, of course, for 99% of the students, the most important thing is that they will have a lot of resources during the years of study and training in higher training schools. Therefore, the competition in the college entrance examination is naturally extremely cruel. Every year in the college entrance examination, just in the actual combat assessment process, a lot of students will die. In order to cultivate the students' actual combat level, in schools, when students have fierce conflicts, there will also be special gymnasiums for students to fight against. Extremely can fight life and death battles. Wu even strongly encourages this. Dingcheng, including the other 17 refuges under the control of Wu, the fierceness of the college entrance examination and the gold content of college students are far beyond the imagination of Gao's previous life. 9th Middle School is affiliated to the Dingcheng Ziowu Department, and has passed hundreds of high schools in the Dingcheng Giant Refuge, and the grades are considered to be a middle school. The senior high school students of the 9th Middle School have more than half a year to face the most important hurdle of their lives. Gao Sai digested these messages in his heart, and followed Chongpeng into the school. First, they went to the school office to make up the tuition for this month of JSI, and then the two walked towards the classroom building of the third year. In front of the office window on the 6th floor facing the door, two figures are watching the students who keep coming in at the school gate. The man a little behind is extremely strong and has a chilling temperament like a sharp blade that has just been unsheathed. Is Han Haiking, the head coach of Xin Yuanju of the 9th Middle School. Han Haiking frowned and said, "Brother Yang, just for the inferior students, you always choose the 3rd Middle School to observe and communicate, and add blockage to the group of security bureau guys. Is it worth it? A few more times, I'm afraid those security bureau guys should go to our boss to file a complaint. It will have a big impact on your future." Is called Yang Ji. It is Yang Tianlang, the principal of 9th Middle School. He is standing in front of the window, his back is slightly rickety compared to the man behind him. Yang Tianlang laughed when he heard Han Haiking's words. "Do you see those poor and inferior students, when they walked in together, did they have a smile on their faces? That's not a smile, but their hope. For this hope, it's worth it. Those guys from the Dingcheng Security Bureau, relying on the Wu who has the Wu family on it, set up cards everywhere in the Dingcheng Refuge, and they made little money. It's not bad for my 9th Middle School student. Let's drizzle. And, I'm sure, they don't have the guts to stab things up, otherwise, it's probably their boss Wu that will have a headache then." Han Haiking sighed. This elder brother of her own probably couldn't listen to her advice. "Don't mention these things, Brother Yang. How long will you have to wait for your martial arts skills to choose a suitable one? Descendants? For so many years and so many students in the 9th Middle School, I don't know how many outstanding Yuanzhens are. I don't believe that none of them has caught your eye. It's not that I don't like it. It's a pity that there are a few people with a good temperament. They are all third-class people. They all have the subtle martial arts of their elders. Side effects of boxing. Actually, you are not ignorant of my set of martial arts, where Yuanzhen's requirements are so high, aren't you and I both middle Yuanzhen? It's mainly Xingxing. The Dingcheng Refuge has stabilized in recent years. Many young people have begun to feel that the strange beasts and weirdness that the military service department resists day and night on the periphery are nothing more than that. They still have the fierceness of the soldiers of the year. Such as Lao Li. Lao Li. Han Haiking's eyes became complicated, and the figure who was often full of cruel words and killed strange beasts appeared in his heart. If it weren't for him, he might have died long ago. JSI and Chongpeng walked all the way along the trail in the school, only to turn the corner. They both stopped looking at the situation in the distance. Chongpeng even pulled the high game, winked at him, and told him to follow him quickly. Unfortunately, the two of them have been seen by a few people in the distance. One of the tallest students saw the two and shouted directly, "Stop, you two come here." "Hee, isn't this the famous licking dog of the big beauty with horse eyebrows, that little white-faced JSI?" JSI took a look at the opponent, and then the message of the boy in front of him appeared in his mind. Maihu, a fourth-class citizen, a student in the third and fifth class of Xin Yuanju, the middle stage of the second life gate of Xin Yuanju, among the third-year students, is considered to be a middle-class level. Is a vicious and arrogant person. There are rumors that the disappearance and tragic death of 7 or 8 inferior citizens in the school are related to him. Almost most of the inferior students met him and walked away. With cares in his heart, Gao Sai glanced at Chongpeng beside him, but found that Chongpeng was already pale and obviously very nervous. Looking at Maihu again, this Maihu and a few other 5th class students, Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com, have already stopped at least more than 20 inferior students with shabby clothes. These were stopped. Every one of the students who came down had their heads down, standing in 2 rows on the side of the road, and a few of them were classmates from JSI. "Call the two of you over, are you really deaf?" Liang Cheng, a 5th class student beside Meihu, shouted. Gao Sai frowned, but Chongpeng beside him did not dare to stand still, dragged Gao Sai to the vicinity of the more than 20 students, and stood together like those inferior civilian students. 5th class student Liang Cheng glared at the two of them, then Chong Maihu smiled flatteringly, "Brother Mei, how about it? Is there enough?" Maihu inhaled half of the cigarette dangling from his mouth, and exhaled a puff of smoke. "At least 20 more cigarettes are enough." He glanced at the inferior civilian students in 2 rows, "Don't be so dejected, just like your parents were to death, it's not like letting you go to the wilderness to kill strange animals." Then he pointed to some daily necessities piled up next to him. "I'm asking everyone to help. As long as you put my daily necessities in your backpack and bring them to the 8th district, it will be done. And it is not for you to help in vain. Everyone will give you 200 yuan for hard work. Those rags you made yourself were transported to the 8th district and sold in those poor shanty town markets. Maybe you won't make 200 yuan. If you run into some shantytown gangsters, you might even get paid. Bring the profit and lose it. Look how thoughtful I am for you. You all quickly pour out the tatters in your bags and pile them up here, and there will be sophomores in high school to help you watch them." Gao Sai in the crowd frowned upon hearing this. "Can the things in my bag be poured out in front of so many people? And this Maihu is pure nonsense, not to mention the bullets in my backpack. I also bought almost 1,000 yuan of daily necessities in the factory in the shanty town, and sell it to the 8th district, and you can earn more than 1,000 yuan. This is still going to be said." Chongpeng's daily necessities, he also asked, it is estimated that he can make more than 2,000 yuan. Presumably the 20 inferior students in the surrounding area are similar. This Maihu made a good calculation, and he sent 200 yuan per person. Furthermore, according to Chongpeng, there is only one opportunity to observe an exchange in each semester of senior high school. Next time, we will have to wait for half a year. This is equivalent to a half-yearly opportunity for these poor students to make money. Maihu, as a 4th-class citizen, can receive very generous high-class welfare every month even if he hasn't started working. It is simply disgusting to the few earning opportunities of these low-class citizens. JSI looked around. Sure enough, as he expected, every inferior student had an extremely humiliating and unwilling expression on his face, but they all lowered their heads, and no one dared to speak. Obviously, the identity of Meihu was the 4th-class citizen. There is a name for his nonsense, and every inferior citizen here is extremely jealous and fearful. Seeing that no one moved, Mei Hu showed an expression like that. His eyes flashed, and he pointed to Guo Shan, the first grade 3 student in the 3rd grade, you come first. Chong Peng, who looked tangled in the crowd, looked at Guo Shan, a low-level citizen with a good cultivation level. Seeing that the blue veins on Guo Shan's forehead burst out, Chong Peng hurriedly persuaded him in a low voice, Guo Zi, forget it, you can make money in other ways, don't irritate him, take a step. Guo Shan is a straight man. He glanced at the classmates with lowered eyebrows. He felt that his heart was filled with grievance and anxiety. He forcibly summoned his courage and said, Mei Hu, ask these classmates, which one of them is back? You can only make 200 yuan. We have worked so hard to prepare so many things, so if you say you let us fall, we fall. Just as soon as he finished speaking, regrets appeared in his eyes, and he actually talked with the noble people with dirty words. Mei Hu showed a sneer, all he wanted was this unconvinced fool's swearing. He jumped over, kicked Guo Shan's waist, kicked Guo Shan several meters, and fell to the ground. Seeing Guo Shan bowing like a prawn in pain, Mei Hu sneered, dare you so special to me? You, the most humble inferior citizen, dare to speak insults to the superior citizen. In this regard, as long as we don't kill you, even if we break your legs and arms, we won't be punished. This is the right of the high-class people. Untouchable, do you think it's great to open the second door of life, stupid rubbish? After speaking, he waved his hand, the surrounding 5th-class students didn't hesitate, they all rushed up and kicked. After a while, he kicked and beat Guo Shan, who regretted being speechless and holding his head so hard, that he fainted. The inferior students watched Guo Shan being kicked and beaten wildly, with worry and humiliation in their eyes, but no one dared to stop them. For them, being bullied was uncomfortable, but it was commonplace. What they worry about is what big problem Guo Shan was beaten. Gao Sai looked at this scene, but his eyes became a little cold. These guys, hee, what a majestic and arrogant high-class people. Mei Hu had already stretched out his hand and pointed at him, little white-faced JSI, what's the deal with you? When spoke, there was a trace of contempt in his eyes. The reason why he chose Guo Shan for the first time was because he knew that he had a straight-tempered and could not speak his brain, so he could kill a chicken and show it to these monkeys. The second choice for Xiao Bailian JSI, who has always been weak and timid, knows that he must not have the guts to refuse. After killing the chicken and showing it to the monkey, of course, I have to bring out an obedient, take the lead in doing things. Gao Sai looked at Mei Hu's contemptuous eyes, took a deep breath, suppressed his uncomfortable heart, and said calmly, I can help you with it, but I want to put the things in my backpack back to my home. Mei Hu glanced at JSI, a little unexpectedly calm JSI, and then sneered again, you are a shanty town untouchable, what can the broken shack block, why not put it here safely? Don't have any ink stains, let's you pour it out, so hurry up and pour it out. JSI stared at Mei Hu, his eyes gradually brought out a hint of coldness, and slowly said, in this case, I challenge you to fight a competitive battle. If you can win, I will naturally help you luck. According to the school's strict regulations, if there are conflicts between students, those with a high level of cultivation cannot take the initiative to challenge, but those with a lower level of cultivation can take the initiative to challenge the opponent to compete. It is impossible for me to pour out the contents of the backpack, and it is impossible for me to take the initiative to engage with the senior Min Mei Hu in the public. This is the heaviest penalty in the Wu Financial Group's system. A behemoth like the Wu Consortium, now that he still needs to grow in strength, he certainly won't easily challenge its system. However, I can use the rules and systems of the Wu Consortium to lead the current dilemma to an arena that can be solved by force. The only problem is how to use this weak body with only the first life gate to win this battle without exposing the body. Mei Hu, who was looking at Gao Sai with contempt, never expected Gao Sai to say so. He had a meal first, and then there was some anger in his eyes, and he looked at Gao Sai carefully. Unexpectedly, the beauty of Ma's licking dog spare tires is so kind. You a pariah of the first life gate, yes is your brain shit, dare to challenge me. Maiho looked at Gao Sai's white face, and a few seconds later he suddenly laughed with a joke and contempt. He smiled at a few high-class students around him and said, have you heard that he, an inferior pariah with a cultivation base, dares to challenge me, ha 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 ha. The high-ranking students around him laughed loudly and looked at JSI with contempt, as if they were watching a fool. How far is the gap between the second life gate and the first life gate, no one does not know. Let alone a fair battle, under normal circumstances, even if 7 or 8 cultivators of the first life gate go together, they may not be able to compete with a second life cultivator. After Maiho laughed for a while, his eyes staring at Gao Sai gradually became cold, and he squeezed a word from his teeth, since you are going to fight, what are you going to play in competitive warfare? If you have a kind of bitch, then life and death fight is good. He has decided now that he must kill this little white face. I dare to challenge myself in front of so many people and do bad things for myself, this unconscious must be tortured to death in order to have a headache. JSI did not speak yet, Changpeng was so anxious that his face turned green, he pulled JSI hard. You are crazy, you are the first door of life, but he opened the second door of life a long time ago, how dare you challenge him? Isn't it just transporting something? You reading www.yuyugonshu.com will take the money. No profit, definitely not worth fighting a mortal battle, you. The low-ranking students around are also watching the high game, and most of them have a worried look on their faces. The huge difference in cultivation level between the two cannot be made up by martial arts and skills at all. What's more, this Maiho behaves all day long, and he has plenty of actual combat experience. He himself is a fourth-class citizen, and his family conditions are much better than those of the lower-class national high-level competition. Maiho, who has been taking the flesh and blood of a different animal all year round, has much better basic physical strength than the high-level. As for Yuan Zhen level, it is said that Maiho is the superior Yuan Zhen, and JSI is the inferior Yuan Zhen. No matter which aspect is compared, the gap between the two is worlds apart. If it is a life and death battle, the one who died is 100% high. Although these inferior people are indignant at Maiho's misbehavior, they still hope that they are both poor and inferior and don't agree to fight for life and death. After being knocked out, Guo Shan, who is slowly regaining consciousness, heard the dialogue and stared at Gao Sai a little nervously. He was a little worried about his classmate agreeing, but with a little extravagance in his heart, I hope Gao Sai is true. He was able to agree and was able to kill this 9 poisonous tumor Maiho in the battle of life and death, but he knew that it was impossible. In the contemptuous sight of the high-class students, under the complicated eyes of the inferior students, JSI looked around the inferior people around, and finally stared at Maiho, suddenly said, I am indeed a poor and down-level inferior, but please remember that although I am poor, it does not mean that I am a bitch. The inferior is not equal to the untouchable. A life and death battle? Good too. The practitioner of the second life gate, is very strong? Those inferior civilian students who lined up in 2 rows around looked surprised when they saw JSI's face resolutely agreeing to fight life and death. They naturally understand the gap between the two, and their hearts are a little heavy, knowing that the high game is going to be bad luck, maybe they will be killed soon. But they looked at Gao Sai's face without the slightest fear, and listened to what he said, the inferior people are not equal to the untouchables. They couldn't help but feel a little excited. Several inferior people were even more excited. He gritted his teeth and looked at JSI with some inexplicable emotions in his eyes. In fact, these inferior students, everyone is a teenager, which one is not just healthy. But they never thought, nor did they expect to be able to be like Gao Sai in front of so many people, loudly tell those high-ranking people, I am not a bitch. Because it has been many years since the establishment of the shelter, they, including their parents, and their parents' parents, are all inferior people. Every generation has come here with their heads down, and it has always been like this. It seems normal for the inferior people to be called untouchables. After some inferior people are promoted to high-ranking people, they will even go back to call the inferior people as untouchables. Under the education and influence of the Wu financial group, the greatest expectation that every inferior citizen is cultivated is not to tell those high-ranking citizens that the inferior people are not untouchables, but to practice hard work and contribute to the Wu financial group. In the future, there will be a chance to become an advanced citizen who can ride on the neck of the inferior people. Suddenly there is a poor, low-ranking citizen like them. In front of them, he actually said that the inferior is not a bitch, not a bitch. He can be so brave, regardless of the difference in cultivation level, and take the initiative and be superior. The advanced people fight for life and death. How can they not be surprised? No matter how surprised they are, there is a surge of excitement in their hearts. Appreciation value plus 188, appreciation value plus 178, appreciation value plus 297. A large piece of information is passed into Gao Sai's mind, increasing the number of glory points. Gao Sai's mouth couldn't help but bring up a smile. Maihu, who stared at JSI on the other side, could still laugh when he saw JSI. His heart was even more murderous, and his hands clapped vigorously. That's great, you can still laugh with such a bad pen. Since you are going to be killed by me, go now. Liang Cheng next to asked, brother, what about these things and these untouchable students? Meihu's mouth twitched, take me a photo of all of them. After a while, I will finish playing this fool. If any of these people dare not come back here, I will find a chance to repay me. The low-class students around, all have a bitter expression. JSI walked in the direction of Jingguo Hall, and turned back to Chongpeng and Guo Shan as he walked and said, go and call more people. Meihu and several people followed immediately, staring at Gao Sai's back, looking bad. Chongpeng and Guo Shan looked at this scene in a daze, both with anxious faces. Then Chongpeng patted his head, just now Gao Sai asked us to call some people. Right, you must hurry up to find the teacher and the class teacher to stop this life and death battle, otherwise, the small physique of Gao Sai. You will be beaten to death through the protective gear. Guo Shan climbed up and nodded again and again, then I'll go to the school office and see if the head coach is there, you go to the head teacher. The two dared not waste time, and both ran in their respective directions. The surrounding students looked at each other, and then some of them ran towards the Jingguo gymnasium. Others ran to their respective classes and asked their classmates to go. This is not a point-to-point competitive battle, this is a rare life and death battle. And he was the inferior citizen of the first life gate, actively challenged the fourth-class citizen of the second life gate, and then fought life and death in Jingguo Gym. Such a thing has never happened. The most important thing is that although they know that the JSI is almost bound to be killed, but JSI is the number 9 middle school and even the entire refuge for so many years, the only humble and inferior citizen who dared to take the initiative to challenge the high class. In any case, they have to call more people like Gao Sai said, so that everyone can see, there is an inferior classmate who dare to tell those high-class students out loud that we are not bitches. Every inferior civilian student who rushed to their respective classes was getting more and more excited. What they didn't know was that at this moment, a weak but bright flame had been ignited in their hearts. JSI stood in the hall of Jingguo Gymnasium, looking at the continuous influx of students and teachers, a little surprised. These students don't have to go to class? Today is the third year of high school students are going to observe an exchange. Other students should still have classes. At this point in time, shouldn't they all be in the classroom, right? The first class is about to take place. I want Chongpeng and Guo Shan to call more people to watch, so that they can have more audiences in this battle, maybe they can earn more glory. But these two guys are so awesome, calling so many people? The most outrageous thing is that many teachers came in with the students. Those teachers gathered together, whispering in the corner of the hall, and kept raising their heads to point to their side. Most of the teachers were talking. Bian shook his head again and again. And those students, who are those with inferior status, are all gathered in a pile, and they are also talking in low voices. But whether it is a junior, sophomore, or first year of high school, the low-ranking students are all excited. While they were discussing, they would keep raising their heads and clenching their fists to show their support for the JSI. There are also messages constantly appearing in JSI's mind: appreciation value plus 158, appreciation value plus 169, cult value plus 178, cult value plus 188. Why did the worship value come out? Gao Sai's expression couldn't help but move. I fight this life and death battle with Mei Hu. According to the words discussed by these students, they are basically not optimistic about themselves. If you are killed in a fight, do you have worship value? Someone just said, I'm an inferior, but I'm not a bitch, and I'm not a bitch. Does it make them so excited? What kind of humiliation, humble life do these inferior people live? Of course, it's even more likely that these shabby and oppressed inferior students have been depressed and bowed their heads for too long, so long that they have completely forgotten that they can raise their heads. That's why I suddenly saw an inferior citizen raising his head now. I was so surprised and so excited. Mei Hu looked at the more and more people in Jingguyu Hall, his expression slowly brought out a hint of cruelty. In order to prohibit private fights, the Wushu department of the Wu Consortium vigorously advocates open competition for martial arts. It clearly stipulates that there is no responsibility for killing people in the arena. However, life and death battles have always been basically the same level of cultivation, and they will only be initiated between the two sides. No one will know that they will be defeated and will initiate such a terrible challenge. And this Gao Sai's brain may be broken, and he dare to agree to fight with the second life gate himself. In fact, in front of so many teachers and students, it is really meaningless to kill a weak chicken from the first life gate. But, on the other hand, it is good to be able to face so many inferior untouchables, let them recognize the reality and see with their own eyes the tragic end of challenging the superiors. Mei Hu continued to wear his own special protective gear with the help of Liang Cheng beside him. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Then he looked at the JSI who was wearing ordinary school protective gear slowly, and sneered and said, "Hurry up and put on the shabai, I can't wait to kill you." JSI, but there is no reason for him, he is paying attention to the increase of the glory value in his mind. Glory value increases very quickly. The students are too enthusiastic, too many. The Jingguyu Gymnasium, which is more than 100 meters long and wide, is extremely wide, but at this time it has almost been filled with the teachers and students of the 9th middle school. The inferior people came here to see with their own eyes, who is the JSI who dare to take the initiative to fight against the high people and what it looks like. Many high-class students of 5th class and 4th class citizens also rushed over. They mainly want to take a look at what kind of guy they are, dare to die like this. These high-ranking citizens are almost all standing together, and they are very distinct from the low-ranking students who gave them a large vacant lot. In fact, just by looking at their dress and face, you can directly distinguish the difference from the inferior people. Inferior students, even if they have practiced Xin Yu and Ju, most of them are still thinner, their faces are mostly black or yellow, and the clothes on their bodies are basically grey, black, and blue. Worn-out canvas pants, clothes of these colors and this material are not good-looking and uncomfortable, but they are durable and stain-resistant. The first-class students, most of their faces are fair and ruddy, and their bodies are healthy and well-proportioned. Clothes and accessories are mostly brand goods that the inferior people can't distinguish, or they are gorgeous and bright and show the breath of youth, or they are simple and beautiful and outline the beauty of youth. These high-class students, looking at the high game on the central platform, most of them have a cold expression on their faces. Some of the high-class students who understand the previous JSI things have a look of contempt on their faces. I thought it was a ruthless character. It turned out to be Ma Mei's humble spare tire, a famous licking dog from Class 3 and Class 3. It's just a little white face, she looks very handsome, but it's a pity that this face will be beaten by Maihu immediately. Although Maihu is not outstanding in his cultivation, he only opened the second life gate for more than 2 years, but a weak chicken like the first life gate like Gao Sai should be killed with a few punches. It's boring, look at everyone. I ran, thinking there was a good show to watch, but I didn't expect it to be a competition with such a big difference in strength. I guess it's nothing to watch. The gap between the two is more than the gate of life, this untouchable high game, haha. When these high-ranking citizens were sneering at the JSI on the stage, a line of figures came in at the gate of the gymnasium, and when the students saw that line of figures, they gradually calmed down. The principal, Yang Tianlang, walking in the front, glanced at the thousands of students who were quiet in the arena, and then looked at Maihu and JSI on the central stage of the arena. Yu Ming, the vice principal on the left behind him, is about 40 years old. His face is very deep with 2 decree lines. His whole person looks a bit harsh. His eyes are a little cold. After looking at Maihu, he stares again. On Gao Sai, who was wearing his protective gear, his eyes narrowed. Yang Tianlang turned his head to ask Li Tao, the third-year class teacher who followed behind him, what is the cultivation level of the JSI? What will he do with Maihu? The tall Li Tao walked over, she frowned and said, Gao Sai is an inferior citizen, inferior Yuan Zhen, the first life gate, and it only took half a year to open, which is much different than Maihu. If 2 people start their hands, it will definitely be a one-sided result. Yu Ming showed a sneer when he heard the words, Principal Yang, Teacher Li Tao, or I will stop the fight, and then let this JSI classmate stop the competition, so that no one will say that Maihu is relying on his cultivation base to fight. Kill the classmates who have a low level of cultivation. Yang Tianlang glanced at Yu Ming. This kind of competitive behavior among students is strongly advocated by the Wu family. Even if one of them is the principal and the vice principal, he and Yu have no right to interfere. Moreover, the 9th middle school and even the entire Dingcheng are extremely martial arts from top to bottom. If someone retreats or fights timidly while competing in the arena, it will be a shame for a lifetime. Especially the JSI in front of so many students from the same school, if it is blatantly, Yu Ming, this old thing, is really uneasy and kind as always. The relationship between Maihu and Yu Ming is unknown to others, but I have heard of it. Otherwise, I won't tolerate such an arrogant and domineering student in his 9th middle school to behave. Unfortunately, it seems that in this life and death battle, Maihu should kill the JSI. Thinking of this, Yang Tianlang couldn't help but frowned. At this time, Changpeng and Guo Shan, who came in with Li Tao, the head teacher, all their expressions moved when they heard the words of Vice Principal Yu Ming. Guo Shan was anxious and said directly, Principal, JSI classmates are the first life gate. They are definitely not Maihu's opponents. You really should let them not compete. Yang Tianlang did not speak, but the cold-tempered head coach Han Hiking snorted, Stupid, can I still step down in this high game now? Do you think he has been cursed by countless people all his life? Guo Shan was scolded by the always stern head coach. Changpeng, who was next to him, had originally planned to ask the head teacher and the head coach to stop the competition, but when he saw the crowds in the arena, his heart was half cold, and when Han Hiking said this, it was even cooler. NS. He gritted his teeth and said nothing, just staring at the Gao Sai on the central stage, feeling annoyed in his heart. Blame myself. If I didn't force the JSI to come to class today, where would such a situation happen? If you really want to start the JSI, 100% of the JSI will be killed on the spot by Yahoo. He couldn't wait to slap himself hard, and even more hope that it was himself who was standing on the stage trying to do something with Maihu. For a while, he was sweating profusely, but couldn't think of any way, so he kept looking at his head teacher Li Tao with pleading eyes. Li Tao has always admired the extremely hard-working Chang Peng. Seeing him desperately anxious, she felt a little irritated and reckless in her heart. This high-level tournament is usually cowardly and timid in school, and never dared to provoke other students. As a result, this provoke not only provokes a fourth-class citizen, but also provokes Maihu, the most nasty guy. Although his heart is anxious, Li Tao has no way to stop this fight, unless Gao Sai, as a challenger, voluntarily gives up and admits that he can't. After sighing heavily, she quickly walked towards the central high platform, and when she got close to JSI, after taking a look at JSI, she said, "What are you thinking about JSI and why do you want to go with this?" Maihu fights life and death. JSI looked at the teacher Li Tao. This is a legendary figure who has quickly risen from the inferior to the 5th class, and is now even the 4th class, the class teacher, Ms. Li Tao, who is even more beautiful than the one in JSI's memory clips. Is tall, slender legs, well-curved, clear and firm eyes, rosy and shiny lips. She is looking at herself with 3 points of incomprehension, 3 points of irritation, and 4 points of anxiety. There is such a beautiful teacher leading the class. It turns out that the high-level competition, why the grades are so bad, even half of Changpeng can't keep up. Seeing Gao Sai not speaking, Li Tao sighed again. It was Vice President Yu who ordered you and a few other inferior students who could not pay the tuition to drop out of school 2 days ago. I only received the notice yesterday. I just found out. It's the situation. You didn't feel resentful towards Vice Principal Yu because of this incident, and then you fought against Maihu for a while. Obviously, Changpeng hadn't explained clearly to Li Tao that Meihu stopped the junior students in the morning. Gao Sai frowned. Does Meihu have anything to do with Vice Principal Yu Ming? Li Tao was stunned for a moment, only to realize that he had missed the point. Meihu was the illegitimate child of Yu Ming. Very few people knew about it. Unfortunately, it is too late to tell JSI about this situation. She shook her head. Forget it, don't talk about those things. Now the battle hasn't started yet, you still have a chance to quit the UU reading www.uuganshu.com high tournament. For young people like you, perhaps fighting for a breath is better than anything else. They are all important, but only those things that make sense if you live. The teacher really hopes that you can bear this breath and give up this battle. Only if you are alive can you have a chance to become a high-ranking citizen. JSI smiled upon hearing Li Tao say this. Teacher Li Tao, don't worry, I will definitely win. How could it be possible to quit now, and for a while, thousands of glory points have been added. Seeing Gao Sai's life and death, Li Tao couldn't listen. She was anxious and raised her willow eyebrows. You guy, how come you haven't seen you for 2 days, and you've spoken so loudly? I'm doing this for your own good, you know you. How big is the gap between me and Maihu? JSI thought about it a little bit. If he compares his second-level super variant body with Maihu, he shook his head decisively. I really don't know how far between me and Maihu will be. Li Tao's eyes widened. You don't know, you still have to die like this, dare to fight with others. At this time, the voice of Vice Principal Yu Ming came over. The current inferior students are really ambitious. The first life gate does not put the second life gate in the eye. This is 30 years in Hedong. 30 years of pride in Hexi. It's not bad. Yu Ming looked at Meihu with cold eyes. Meihu student, remember to be merciful with your classmates, don't be too much. Meihu naturally understood what Yu Ming meant when he heard his father say this. It seems that he was not on the arena today. He killed this high game that was causing trouble for his father on the spot. This father who has been reluctant to admit himself in public is not forgiving himself. At this point, a stronger killing intent appeared in his eyes. Seeing the murderous intent flashing in his son's eyes, Yu Ming sneered and announced, in the life and death battle, in accordance with the regulations of the Ministry of Military Affairs, the two sides cannot use hot weapons, poisoned hidden weapons, and companion animals. There are no other restrictions. If the two sides have no other problems, let's start the competition. Where could Maihu be restrained? He just turned over flexibly and landed in the center of the table. JSI also showed a smile to Li Tao, Chongpeng, and others, and then walked slowly over. He already had a plan in his mind. One or two super variants of oneself must not be exposed. Then, relying solely on the strength and speed of the weak body's first life gate and inferior Yuan Zhen, it seems that it is impossible to be Maihu's opponent at all. But after upgrading to the second level super variant, it not only brings powerful combat power such as strength and speed, there is also a significant increase in the speed of neural response and the super acuity of the five senses. Changes in this area will not be lost because you are now a weak body. Maihu looked at the thin and white JSI standing in front of him. Don't worry, I will have fun, I won't play you to death soon. JSI looked cold, and then stretched out a hand and pointed to the 6 bright red characters on the floor of the stage. Divide up and down, decide life and death. Maihu chuckled. Qi and blood move faster, the first life door opens, Qi and blood speed up again, the second life door opens, his strength, speed, and explosiveness have been greatly blessed, and then he is preparing to rush towards the high game. JSI waved his hand. Wait a minute. Maihu was taken aback for a moment, then stopped, and then squinted at Gao Sai, laughing with a joke on his face. You shameless pen, now you want to beg for mercy? Don't you? Ha ha ha, it's okay. As long as you are now, in front of thousands of classmates, just kneel on the ground and kowtow until I am happy. Thousands of teachers and students around are all paying attention to the two people on the high platform. Those inferior students all have doubts on their faces, the high-class students all looked contemptuously, showing such an expression as expected. Gao Sai turned around and stood on the high platform with his back to Maihu, his eyes swept across the faces of the inferior and high-level students, and then he spoke resolutely and loudly, My name is Gao Sai, I am an inferior citizen. I understand the rules of this world, so I can bear it, and I can bear all the high-ranking people riding on my neck, but there is one thing that I absolutely can't bear. You can't already ride on my neck and there. I am an inferior citizen, but I am also a human. If I win today, I hope that in the future, my classmates can call me inferior. Don't call me a bitch, don't call me a bitch. If I die today, I hope that my urn will only be engraved with 2 words, JSI, no identity or anything else. This is his performance, but it is also his truth. Because he is also an inferior citizen, because although he has not lived in this world for a long time, what he sees is probably only the tip of the iceberg in this world, but even the tip of the iceberg has already shocked him. The whole arena is a bit quiet at the moment. Every inferior student stared at the JSI on the high platform. Some inferior students clenched their fists unknowingly, some of the lower-ranking students started to breathe a little bit faster. Some inferior students were so excited that their bodies began to tremble uncontrollably. Guo Shan, who had been beaten before, burst out again on the blue veins on his forehead. He touched the bruise that had not faded from his body, and his eyes were full of indignation and excitement. Chongpeng was staring at Gao Sai, the corners of his eyes were a little moist. He did not expect that Gao Sai could say this in front of thousands of people. He never thought of these words, but these words seemed to be what he wanted to say the most in his life. Each sentence was like a knife stuck in his heart, making his heart couldn't help but twitch. Appreciation value plus 469, appreciation value plus 597, cult value plus 678, cult value plus 888. At this moment, in Gao Sai's brain, the information is as dense as raindrops falling in the rain, increasing crazily, constantly breaking through numbers. Gao Sai turned his back to Maihu, and looked at the excited inferior students with a resolute expression. Until the rate of increase of the information in my mind slows down, then he slowly turned around and looked at Maihu. Okay, let's start. Maihu almost couldn't hold back. Stop your words. His left foot suddenly stepped on the ground with a bang sound, and his body rushed toward JSI at high speed. When he was about to approach, he retracted his right fist, then slammed it out quickly, and slammed into Jayasai's chest. The third type of thunder boxing, shock and break through the air. The sound of fist breaking through the air suddenly sounded on the central stage. Jayasai had already passed the martial arts in his memory before he took the stage. At this moment, watching Maihu hit him with a punch, his eyes are calm, too slow. His second-level hypertransformation and remodeling nerves, UU reading www. The speed of Ukansha.com's observation and reaction has already surpassed Maihu by many times. Maihu seemed to be quick, and this punch that was extremely vigorous landed in his pupils, but it was as if it was slowed down n times. If it wasn't for his weak body, he couldn't match his nerve reaction speed. Gao Sai felt that he might be able to lie on the ground and yawn now, then get up and then take a punch. In my mind, Maihu's punch angle and direction were calculated. Jayasai's vitality accelerated, opened the first life gate, and then punched it. Boom! The fists of the two collided head-on. Maihu stayed still, with a cruel and triumphant smile on his face. In the high game, it took 7 or 8 steps back and forth to take advantage of the situation and completely relieved the penetrating power of Maihu's fist, and urged a large amount of blood to run continuously, which forced out the blood that Maihu's fist had invaded. Shook his painful and numb fist, but the Gao Sai was repulsed by Maihu, but his face did not show any trace of annoyance. The hard fist made him directly try to find the gap between this weak body's first life gate and Yahu's second life gate. The difference between the static push weights of the two sides is probably more than 200 to less than 300 kilograms, but the difference in explosive power after using martial arts can be more than 1,000 kilograms, which is more than 1 ton. No wonder the thousands of people present, including the principal of number 9 middle school and the head coach, none of them had any hope of their own victory. The gap of explosive power of more than 1,000 kilograms, normally speaking, is not proficient in martial arts at all. It can be narrowed. Break 10 times in one effort. Of course, that was the original high game without any gap that could close.